back to another DadOTron99 Save the World video. This is again part of my beginner's guide to Save the World. This is me working on my new account that I created just for working through Fortnite from a fresh account when it went free to play on April 16th. So I wanted to use this account as a way of showing how things unlock in the game if you yourself are starting as a new player. So everything that I'm doing with this account should mirror, pretty closely to what you were having with your experience as a new Save the World Fortnite player. Now, you'll see I've also got the new Jess skin. This was a quest that was added after it went free to play. You had to get 350,000 XP to unlock Jess. And you actually found this by looking at it was a bit weird. You actually had to go into the Battle Royale mode and look at the quests in there. So it was a bit interesting place to have it on the main Fortnite screen. You had to you had to select Battle Royale. You had to go look at the quests, and underneath the quest for Battle Royale, there was a Save the World quest that tracked how many XP you actually had for Jess. Now that said, I just finished page 3 of the mainline quests, and that's about when I unlocked Jess XP wise. So if you've just been doing the missions, sequentially, you should have her unlocked as well. So just always great to get a new skin, especially one that is specifically themed to Save the World. So that's pretty cool. So what I'm going to do in this video is to sort of catch up a little bit on where we're at from the last one. The last video that we had sort of talked about is that we were sort of on page 1. We stepped through. I've had a separate video that sort of showed how do you do your basic fight the storm mission and ride the lightning. And I did have some other videos here that sort of talked about retrieve the data and your first survivor missions, as well as your first the second storm shield defense or SSD mission. Page 3 then starts back with a third SSD mission, and this one's a little interesting. I actually thought that this was the guided tutorial mission where it actually shows you how to start placing some builds and some traps, but it isn't. So when you start this one, it just has the husks come from all 3 directions, sort of east, south, and west. So you sort of get a wave of husks from each side, but it doesn't specifically tell you how to build. So or to build anything. So just be aware of that one. I'll show a video of it because I forgot. It's one of the instances where you'll see as a new player, sometimes it's a bit confusing on certain missions, whether or not you're just sort of preparing to start the mission, and it gives you an opportunity to build, right? A little bit. Sometimes it almost gives you like a pre-timer before the first wave hits, and in other cases, the wave starts instantly. So it's a little bit hard to tell. This is an instance here that if you start this mission, right, if you go to the Storm Shield and start that mission, it starts the waves immediately. So I did a previous video on sort of where to build some of the defenses for that. I wouldn't overbuild on this SSD mission because as we see, and we'll take a look at here when we jump into another one, coming into here on page 4 with SSD 4. I believe this is actually the guided tutorial that actually shows you and actually requires you to build certain walls and floors and ceilings in certain places, and it makes you place a couple of traps as a way of just sort of guiding you through what it should look like. For this one, though, for SSD 3, just put the walls up around there. You can put some walls up to sort of, funnel and tunnel the husk a little bit, but between your weapons and your melee and your abilities, you shouldn't have too much trouble taking care of the waves of husks that come, but it does start to expose, especially early on with the level of weapons that you have, how weapons alone really are going to start to become problematic. It's one of those cases where you feel like you're struggling a little bit just to deal with all the husks, just based on how many that are coming, right? And this will become very critical as you get into the game about why building and trap tunnels and things like that are so important, is because they can just logistically handle many more husks than you can as a single hero, at least early on, right? Until you get better loadouts and better abilities and better heroes. but that all takes a lot of time, right? So, yeah, so just on this one, just be aware of that when you start it from the mission control center there. It starts sending waves immediately. I think it makes a little short countdown timer, like 20 seconds or something. But they start coming pretty quickly, and I think there's 2 or 3 waves that come from different directions and attack the main shield base. And then we had a couple ones here around addition. These ones this sort of drives the storyline more. You can see, like, when you take a look at some of these missions, some of them just say, hey, right, collect research equipment in any 5+ city, suburban, or additional zone. So when you're doing these missions, always take a look at this description here on the right? It's very, it'll let you know if you have to do a certain type of mission, right? In some instances, like, hey, you have to go do a fight to storm, or you have to do a ride to lightning. In other cases, if they're sort of storyline based quests like this one, I don't care what mission type it is, but the map zone maybe matters, right? So we go take a look at the map. Now see mine. It keeps. There's some fun glitches going on at the moment where sometimes the storm is there, and sometimes it's not. It exposes it. It's just supposed to be a visual glitch in Save the World at the moment, because all of the storm cloud should not be showing, but we can still take a look at it, right? So if we take a look at in the left there, it shows us what level the zone is. In the case, this is a 3, right? This one is a 5. Essentially, as you go out from the starting point of your base, right, as you sort of radiate out from your base, the missions get progressively harder and higher level, right? So this is a level 9. But when we take a look at these, the other thing to take a look at is right underneath on the top left there, where it says the name of the type of mission, resupply, rescue the survivors. Right underneath it, it says suburbs, Stonewood, right? This one is also suburbs. This is a city. There's an industrial park. And I'll do a more, I'll do a different video that goes into these a little bit more. But just pay attention that, certain maps need to be done in certain zones. And as you get later in some of the missions, you also find out that when you're looking for certain types of things, even if it doesn't instruct you, like, it's much easier to find chests, right? There'll be missions later on or quests later on. We have to open so many chests. Those are much more likely to be found in suburban or city or even industrial zones, right? If they're pure wooded zones, sometimes they're a little bit less frequent. So the spawn rates of certain types of things vary from zone to zone, right? So this is one of those missions where it doesn't care what mission type it is, right? You just have to collect research equipment in a 5+ zone in any of those types of zones, city, suburban, or industrial. Then we do build off, which again, right, this one goes to a particular mission. This is more of a guided mission, and it shows you how to build certain pieces. So again, this is a guided tutorial mission where you get to the objective, and then it wants you to place certain builds around it. One of the fun things about these ones is that when you're trying to put up, it'll be asking you to put up essentially what look like ramps. In some cases, it wants you to put a cone and edit it into a ramp, and then sometimes it just wants you to use a ramp or a stair build. So if you're trying to place it right in that mission and place the ramp and it's not working, try the other. If you're trying to place a cone and edit it into a ramp, that's not working, then just place a regular ramp. It's a little bit hard to tell the way it sort of shows it. The other part too, and I'll cover this. I've got a PowerPoint that I'll share here with folks as well, and I'll put a link to it in the description. I sort of show what unlocks in these, and we'll talk about that in a second. But when you do this build-off mission, it automatically takes you down and does this enter the ninja sort of submission, right? So it's doing it at the same time. Eliminate 20 husks with a melee weapon. And that gives you sort of like a first ninja hero in the game. But this sort of goes sequentially, because after you do this, right, do the build off and do the ninja mission, it sort of just goes on to rescue the survivors. And this extra mission here, the To Boldly Go, which is actually unlocks the Outlander. You have to actually go back and manually do this one. It doesn't remind you to go back. And I ran into this before where you're continuing on like page 4 or 5, and then you're like, hey, wait, right? There's supposed to be an Outlander I'm supposed to get back here. You have to go do the mission intentionally. and this is a little bit tricky too. On controller, getting to these lower menus, actually, I find you have to sort of have to hit, in my case, it's the A button, right? You have to hit the A button to actually like get down there to actually select it. It's a bit weird. If you're playing on PC, I mean, I play on PC with the controller, so I kind of have both. But if you're playing on PC, then you can just use the mouse. You can just sort of easily click on these ones. But if you're playing on controller, it's sometimes a little glitchy on how you get down these ones and select them. So just make sure you don't forget about this one because it does give you some people XP, and it gives you Shock Specialist AC as a uncommon hero for completed the mission. So don't forget to do that one as well. Okay. So that takes us sort of up to the end of page 3. So let's talk a little bit about. So this is the guide I was talking about, this PowerPoint guide. Now I'll share this out, and it sort of steps through each of the first 8 pages of the Stonewood quest line, as well as what you have to do to complete the additional Storm Shield defense missions all the way up to level 10. So that's actually the complete walkthrough through Stonewood. As I've talked about before, if you just complete the storyline quests, there's actually still more to do in Stonewood, but the storyline quests sort of continue on to Plankerton, right? So to talk about that a little bit, so on page 1, right, that's what we went through before, right? And so I put this in here just to give, sort of highlight a couple of things, right? One is to sort of show, what rewards you get, and you'll see these in the mission tips. When you look at the missions themselves, you'll see this. But I thought this base was, this guide was sort of helpful, and I could add some tips in here that might be helpful to you. But it also shows you what unlocks at what level. And we're actually going to test one of these assumptions out because the quest lines are not always accurate as they're written on the page, and we're going to do an example, I think, where it'll show that here in a moment. But also page 1. The main thing is that we get base Kyle, and base Kyle is one. Even in the end game, right? As far as a constructor goes, he's one of the best heroes in the game, especially one of the best constructors, just because of the extra health and armor that he gives to builds. It just makes builds really, really tanky, right? And it can take a lot of damage, which just makes your defending against waves of husks and your trap tunnels just way more effective. So it's really great to get Kyle. And then through the rest of that, those couple of missions there, the main things that you start to unlock is you unlock your first survivor squad, which is a scouting party, and you get the first pickaxe upgrade, which is part of the gadgets menu, right? So your pickaxe does more damage. It just means that you can harvest and farm things more quickly, and you'll continue to go up on these as you go through. And when you ride the lightning, you get a couple of the common schematics, right? Now you're not really going to, healing pad you actually use quite a bit. You can use this for quite a while. Obviously you can upgrade these schematics and use them, further on. So the healing pad is definitely a trap that is used a lot. It's nice to sort of get, one to use right off of the bat. The ruler sword is not good. And you'll find really quickly that you'll find, melee weapons that are much better than that, and schematics for them that are better. So you're not really going to use a ruler sword going forward, right? It's good to use when you get it, but you're very quickly going to transition off that. So my tips on this one were really, play the missions, play these first couple of missions as much as possible as base Kyle, and practice using his base perk. So that's where it's a build, right? So when you go to place down the floor build, there's an option on there, as some of my other videos have shown, that places a base. Right, and that base goes out in a 4x4 area, and any walls or builds attached within that area, and any traps attached to those walls all gain an armor and an HP bonus. So it makes them really, especially in early game. One of the most difficult things is that you just find, the husks are just really smashing their way. Even if I'm using wood or even if I'm using brick. Or metal to a certain extent, the husks really just chew through the HP of my builds, and I'm sort of constantly struggling to keep them back. Right? If you use the base and get that extra armor and the extra, whatever, 75 HP if Kyle's in the lead, it helps out so much in the early game, right? And as you go deeper into it, base Kyle just, as you get better rarities of base Kyle, right, up to legendary, He's just really strong. So yeah, so practice using minimal builds and tunneling around the objectives, right? So you don't want to be overbuilding. So when you get the Atlas from Fight to Storm, and you get the Lars's van through Ride the Lightning, right? The Atlas you can just do a square build around. I didn't show the pyramid version. I showed the whatever I don't even know if we have a name for it, but you basically have outward facing ramps around the square and then a panel on top of it. Um, you know, we'll have to come up with a name for it, but you can also flip those around and do a pyramid over it. There's the fun part about Save the World is when you take a look at the way you defend these objectives with builds. There's so many different flavors of techniques, and all of them are valid in their own way, and they have their pros and cons, right? But practice doing those with as few builds as possible. So, in my opinion, it's better to build a smaller build around the objective and use Kyle's base ability to just make them way more heavy from an HP perspective. When I first started playing, I didn't understand that. I I overbuilt really badly, right? I would build, multiple rings of walls um, around my objectives, and they were just way overbuilt, and maintaining them took forever. It took a lot of resources, right? Because anytime you build anything, you've got to go, if you're using wood or brick or metal, you have to go get those materials back, right? If you make a big base out of wood, you're going to have to go harvest a bunch of wood again afterwards. In early game, that can be a bit onerous, right? Of just having to go, I did a mission and now I got to go do a resupply mission to go farm up materials again, right? So, as I'll show when we go through, different missions, try to make them as minimal as possible, and then use your hero abilities, um, right, to get as good advantage of that as you can. And then, because these early missions are not that difficult, um, as well as that you're sort of constrained with how much new ammo you have, you're finding you burn through ammo really quickly, especially depending on what type of weapons you're using. Let the traps do the work. Like, get comfortable making that minimal base build around the objective. Set up, a couple of traps, and then just do the work of, you know, guiding husks through the trap with your builds, and tempting them with shooting them, because they will follow you, right? If you shoot husks, they will have a tendency to sort of walk towards you. So you can guide them that way a little bit too. But like, let the traps do the work, right? And then do the cleanup with your melee weapons, right? Even if that's just like your ruler sword or whatever you have, or whatever you found, that's really a muscle memory that you're going to want to build, because it's really critical to a lot of the core games, game style as you get into the later missions, right? So, lay the traps. Try to resist the urge just to use your weapons, right? So you want to burn through it, save your ammo, right? You're going to burn through it a lot, so let the traps do the work, and try to clean up with your melee or your abilities, right? Whatever that hero has for abilities, that doesn't take ammo. Okay. And then, we sort of moved on to the third page, which is what I completed here, which was your next SSD defense, the first rescue the survivors mission, and the first retrieve your data mission. So your rescue the survivors is fairly straightforward. It's a good mission to do quests on. So it gives you a large timer, right? I think it's 20 minutes for rescue the survivors, and you only have to rescue 6 to complete the mission successfully. I think there's a total of 12 if you get all of them. But if you rescue all of the survivors, it ends the mission immediately. So I'll have to double check which it is, if it's like 10 or 12 survivors total. But be aware of that, right? So the advantage of the Save the Survivors is fairly quick to go through and get the 6 you need to complete the mission and make it successful. And then you've got the rest of that time and that timer to either go around and complete quests, right? Going around and looking at the map and looking for the little yellow exclamation marks to complete the quests that you're going to have, or go farming for materials. I'll go through the city area because I need to get more nuts and bolts or more metal. I need to go explore the caves around the exterior of the map because I need more rock or rough powder for crafting things. So use, they're a good mission from that perspective. They're fairly easy to do, and they give you a lot of extra time on the mission timer. That's you can, a lot of playing Save the World is efficiency of time, right? If I'm if I'm in a mission like that and I complete it, what am I going to do with the rest of that time? You could go save the rest of the survivors, and there are quests that are associated with how many survivors you save. But more often than not, I find it's more important to get other quests done or just go farm a bunch of materials, depending on whatever you're short on. Right? If you just do a previous mission and you're short on wood because you did a bunch of builds with wood, then go farm up some wood. As an example. At this, during these pages, you on that survivor mission, you actually unlock the ability to start leveling up your heroes. So you've been collecting some hero XP, or sorry, in this case, it's called now people XP. You're building up this people XP, and this is the first time after the Give Me 3 mission you're actually able to use it to upgrade the level of your hero. So my strong recommendation is that you upgrade base Kyle. You can only upgrade him to level 10. And I can't remember if you've got enough people XP at this point to take him all the way to level 10. I think you do. If you don't, after you do the next couple of missions, you'll definitely have collected enough to take him up to level 10. Right now, you can't go beyond level 10 and a 1-star. So if we take a look here, right? So the idea is that if we go back into our hero view here, this is one of those things as well too that isn't really said out loud, but the game does show you if you look at it. So I've taken Kyle, and I've actually, if we go upgrade and inspect, we can see that I've taken. Well, here, let's take a look at another hero that hasn't been. Right, so take a look at Ramirez. She's level 8 out of 10, and it's telling me in the bottom right there how many people XP I need to take her up to the next level. Right, and if you do that, you can skip ahead and say, hey, okay, if I had to take her all the way up to 10, I would need 2,550 people XP, and I currently only have 220. Right, so my recommendation early on is, because he's just so critical to have, is upgrade base Kyle to level 10, right? Now, what you won't be able to do is when you go, you'll see that he's level 10, but he's 1-star, right? In order to go up to level 20, you have to evolve him to a 2-star hero. And that just takes some of the you'll see here when we take a look at it, it takes some people XP to do it. And then this is where some of the first evolution or upgrade resources come into play. Pure drops of rain is something that comes in and goes, okay, you need to get pure drops of rain plus some people XP to evolve him to a 2-star. And when you do that, you can see in the top left there, now his potential top level is level 20. And then you can continue to use your people XP to take him up to level 20. Right, but it says right here, evolution to a 2-star doesn't unlock until you complete Plankerton, and specifically the Plankerton SSD1 mission. So you're not going to be able to take him to 2-star right off the bat. And this is one of the things of the game where if this gets dished out over a long period of time, right? Even on my main account where I'm like level 56 and I'm about halfway through Canny Valley, I can only upgrade my heroes to 3-star and essentially level 30, right? Or level 40. I can't take them up to 4-star yet because that doesn't unlock until Twine Peaks. So just be aware of that, right? There's certain things of you can save this people XP because you can only take them to level 10 for the first long part of first all of Stonewood. You'll only be able to take heroes up to level 10, right? And 1-star. You won't be able to evolve them yet until you complete. If we go back and take a look at our missions, when is that? When is that SSD mission in Plankerton? I think it's on the first page. Yeah, so that first page. Once you complete this mission here, then, and you can see it, I believe it goes there. Yeah, we can see in the rewards, we see what it unlocks, 2-star evolution, right? So just don't worry about it through Stonewood. Just, take a couple of heroes and sort of, we'll do a video of what are some of the better heroes to use, but you can only take them up to level 10 and 1-star all the way through Stonewood, right? It doesn't unlock further until you get into Plank. Okay. So then a couple of the other things that I recommend there is that, so upgrade base Kyle, spend time farming wood and rock in particular. You don't need metal as much at this point because it's, I mean, you can certainly use it, but you get, when you farm wood and rock, some of the resources you get from that, obviously you get the wood and the brick for building. You also get the resources, right? So if you do trees, you'll get like twine and rough twine, and when you do rock, you'll get things like rough powder. These are needed for crafting. So early on, it's better to go, be more heavy on wood and rock, because those are the crafting materials that you will more need early game for doing certain types of crafting. You still want to do metal as well too, but you definitely want to be looking for wood and rock, and then search containers, right? Um, Search the little food cans you see. Search the little red tool chests. Those will give you nuts and bolts, and nuts and bolts are mainly needed for crafting ammo, and that becomes important for the first little bit, because you'll hit a point there as you get better weapons and with higher fire rates. You need, it's like, I need to craft more ammo because I'm only finding so much in the missions, and you need nuts and bolts and a couple other things to craft those. And then for retrieve the data, the recommended build for that is build a 1 square box around where it lands, right, where the balloon lands, and then make it too tall, right? And I've got the video that sort of shows and steps your way through that. But build that base, and then build, like a little a roof platform around it that you can put the Kyle's base on to protect all of the builds, and then it also gives you, that roof aspect where you can start to put some traps up. Okay, so take a look at my video that I think I showed you for that one as well. I think I've released that one as well, right? So again, these are just my tips, right? Take Kyle up to level 10. Again, practice those minimal builds around the different objective types. Put his base perk down, and then practice some basic things with traps, and go through that as well too. So yeah, on this page, you unlock the hero level up, and you also unlock the weapon and trap schematic level up. I wouldn't worry about these too much at this point, right? So the weapon and trap schematic level up, you're not going to have to worry about that until, I'm going to argue, until you get deeper into Plankerton, where you're going to be paying attention to that. The main reason for it is that when we take a look at the different types of traps that we have, they have rarities as well, just like everything else does, right? So if we are accurate to STM, we go look at our schematics, our blueprints here, right? When we take a look at, these have rarity when we go take a look at the traps. And so you're not going to want to really waste, a big piece of this is that you don't want to waste your XP. So in this screen, you can see in the top there's my XP. I've for schematic XP. I've got 10,000 schematic XP, right? So upgrading these to different, these upgrade the same way heroes do, right? They go levels, right? So each star evolution has 10 levels. When you're on star 1, it goes from 1 to 10. When you go to star 2 star, it goes from 10 to 20. When you go to 3 star, it goes from 20 to 30, so on and so forth. So all through Stonewood, you can't take these any higher than 10 anyway, and you're going to get better rarities of these as you go, right? Up to, mostly with traps, this is just legendary. I don't know if there's any mythic traps. Most of them go up to legendary. So you're going to get that gold version of these over time. So you're not really going to want to, waste your schematic XP on traps in particular. There will be weapons that you'll definitely want to focus on, and I won't do it myself, only because Mr. Beast has the best tier list, and I'll put a couple in the description of this video. Go take a look at. He's got one for every category, and he refreshes them every couple of years. So I'm not gonna, if it ain't broke, right, don't fix it. His videos are fantastic. I use them myself, and I use them in such a way to sort of go, okay, which of these are worth using? The tier lists are really helpful, because there are a lot of weapons in Save the World. And we'll go look at the collection book here in a second, just to sort of talk about what that is and when that unlocks. That was the other thing I wanted to actually test as part of this video. But there's so many weapons. And I encourage you on early missions, like if you find weapons, so if you go and look at your backpack, right, you're going to find a bunch of these weapons. I encourage you when you find weapons, equip them, try them out, especially in the early missions, because they're not as difficult, especially through Stonewood. The Husk's HP is lower. They're not as tough. They don't come in as big waves. So, play around with these different weapons, right? Find a different, find a mix of the ones that seem to work well for you. One of the things I think with like assault rifles is some of them are automatic and some of them are not, right? So, sort of the core one here, the Breacher, fully automatic. You hold down your trigger and it just keeps firing. Other ones like, this one here, the Predator, it's tap fire. It's not automatic. Essentially they're semi-automatic. So I always found that using these semi-automatic ones is tough on the assault rifles, just because whatever I play controller, and just my finger gets tired sometimes if you're just constantly spamming that assault rifle. But like, there's so many different types between sniper rifles, between shotguns. Try them all out and figure out which ones you like, right? Which ones feel good, which ones fit your play style. And then if you want to know which ones are better in early game versus late game, go look at Mr. Beast's tier videos for all the different weapons, ranged weapons, melee weapons, and traps, mainly around the weapons. And he breaks them down into different tiers, because if we search here, for me, this is right stick or left stick for me on controller. You can search by rarity. You can also search by subtype. So you can see here is that we have assault rifles, we have explosive weapons like rocket launchers, we have pistols, we have shotguns, and sniper rifles in the ranged weapons category, right? And we'll go take a look at melee weapons. There's a bunch here as well too. There's hardware, sword, spear, hammer, axe. There's a bunch of different ones in there. So the whole point is that you'll try these out. You're going to get copies of these just finding them naturally as you play the game. Try them out and see how they feel. Right? See how much damage they do. See how good the range is. Right? This double punch hits really hard, but its range is really short. Right? So its utility is a bit limited. So the whole point of that is that try these out, because you're only going to, when we go back to this aspect of my schematics, and I have this XP to upgrade my schematics, not only are you going to want to upgrade, I wouldn't waste schematic XP on anything less than rare or blue rarity, right? An argument could be made that you really shouldn't spend on the rifles unless you sort of, there might be a couple early on or really early game, like the Breacher. Okay, well, maybe you'll take a blue or a rare Breacher and spend a little bit of XP on it just to increase its damage output a little bit. But for the most part, the general consensus is you're really not, you're not going to be doing much of this upgrading until you get into Plankerton, and you're going to want to save that XP for epic or legendary, or in this case with weapons, mythic varieties as you get. So once you burn this XP, you can get it back if you collect or recycle the schematic, but you get the XP back, but you don't get some of the evolution materials, right? So we'll have a whole thing on crafting and schematic management and those types of things. My main message is for, as new players through Stonewood, you're really not going to worry about doing schematic upgrades and spending your schematic XP on ranged weapons or traps in particular. Traps can wait even longer. I would argue you're probably not going to be upgrading traps until towards the end of Plankerton, maybe even early Canny Valley. Or when you complete the SSD missions for Stonewood, and if you're interested in it, doing some of the endurance missions in Stonewood at that point, having a couple of upgraded traps is going to make sense. But again, the whole point here is that there's so many different weapon types and trap types that it's just until you get really late in the end game, a long time from now, and you have XP and evolution materials just to burn, you don't have enough to go around. You're not going to be able to upgrade each one of these. So, and some of them just aren't worth it. That's what you'll find as well too, and that's where the Mr. Beast tier list come in really helpful. He's very blunt about which ones are good in his opinion and which ones are not. And it's a good guidance. And obviously there are other ones out there as well too, but you're going to want to pick, a couple of weapons, and I'll do a separate video about that, about, really early game based on what you kind of have access to. What are a couple of good, mix of weapons, ranged weapons and melee weapons, which, you'll probably have access to, which are decent. That they'll sort of get you through Stonewood and maybe Plankerton. Okay. And so, to get back to the point of this video, is that one of the things, we go back up to our menu, our quest view here, is that when we take a look, this is where I wanted to test out. So I'm on page 4 with my new account here, right? We're going to do SSD4. That's going to be a guided tutorial. But you can see here that the middle mission here, the mandatory minimalism, is one of the rewards is unlocking, recycling, and collection. And this is where these aren't always accurate. I'm actually going to test this because I have not done that mission yet, right? As you can see, Rescue the Survivors on page 3 is the last one I completed. It's saying that recycling and collection doesn't unlock until you get to mandatory minimalism. But if I go to my, schematics right now, and I take a look at my ranged weapons as an example, actually see here I have multiple copies of a Thrasher, and that's what you'll find. You collect these over time. You can have multiple copies of the same weapon of the same rarity, right? But they have these built in, and this is randomized. This is the list of what the perks are on it, and these are random. So you can see here that on this Copper Thrasher, I've got 10% damage. I've got weapon stability. It is tied to an element, a physical element, and it's got a crit damage modifier on it. And these can all be upgraded over time. You won't even be able to do this until you get into Plankerton, almost like mid to late Plankerton, where you're actually able to unlock the ability to upgrade the individual pieces of these weapons and weapon schematics. So I wouldn't even worry about it for now. And at one point, you can actually swap perks out. So if you don't like this mix of damage and weapon stability and crit, right, and you would say, I want to swap my weapon stability out for a reload speed perk, you can do that. But again, that you're really not going to be able to do that and have the resources to do that and unlock the ability to do that until the third zone, which is Canny Valley. So don't worry about for all of Stonewood and most of Plankerton, you're mostly just worried about what rarity these weapons are and maybe upgrading a couple of them to, level 10 and then maybe 2-star when you get into Plankerton. You don't need to overthink too much about it after that because you simply are not able to upgrade them anymore because you won't have unlocked that ability until Canny Valley and Twine Peaks and beyond. Okay, so you just don't need to worry about it because you're not going to do it anyway. Okay, and that was something that wasn't obvious to me when I first started playing. I'd see all these videos about, hey, I've got my legendary schematic at level 5, and it's whatever it's a whatever top level rated weapon, and I was like, oh, I couldn't even get there, and it wasn't available to me. It's not like it wasn't playing enough. It literally is locked out until you get to a certain point in the quest line where they even unlock the ability to do that. So mostly just focus on try to get, rarer and epics, collect the legendary ones if you can, but, early game, if you've got a good, blue rarity of a weapon, hey, run with it. So what we wanted to test here, see, ADHD brain take me off on tangents again. So what we want to actually test here is that when you click on these, you can see there's this button. I can collect them, or if I've got multiples, I can also recycle them. And so what does it mean to collect them? Okay, well, there's something called the collection book. And we'll do a much deeper dive on this later on. But if you go to the command menu, go down to your collection book, the collection book represents everything that exists and is obtainable in Save the World. So every hero, right? Every hero type, every weapon type, every survivor, every defender, everything. And it also covers, because a lot of these happen from a seasonal perspective, right? So you see, hey, we have event people. Oh, there's the wild heroes. There's the birthday heroes. These different times of year, these are available during the different like sort of seasonal events that happen on a cyclical basis throughout the calendar year. At certain times of year, some of these events are running, and when you're doing that, when you're getting llamas, right? Llamas, the types of llamas change through the year, and which ones are available based on what season you're sort of in. So this is everything that's possible to represent here. So what you can do is that if you have a schematic or a hero that you're not using, or if you have a duplicate of it, you can add it to your collection book. And the more things you add to your collection book, its level goes up and it gives you rewards. So you can see here that right at level 2, at the top there, it's going to give me a rare melee schematic for collecting things out of my collection book. You have to hit the X button. It actually shows you what comes up on the next couple levels. So level 2, right? I get 1500 collection XP. It'll give me a rare weapon schematic. At level 3, it gives me a trap schematic. At level 4, it gives me a rare hero. If you get all the way up to level 50, it gives you a recruitment voucher, right? Which lets you go back in here and basically spend the voucher. You can get a hero anytime, right? By just using the voucher to collect it. So this is a great way to level things up early on. It's also a good way of sort of keeping your schematic view here clean, because you can see here I only have 250 slots for all of my heroes and all of my schematics. Now, if this goes up over time, as you level up, that number gets bigger. You can buy some slots for it, but it is as you get into Plankerton, it's turned into a constant pressure of I'm always bumping up against this limit, and if you're over the limit, it won't let you craft schematics that you just obtained until you recycle or collect some of them back below your inventory limit. So managing your inventory starts to become important as you get through, even right now through mid to late Stonewood, right? You're starting to collect a bunch of these things, and you don't need all of them. So the recommendation is you want to be careful here a little bit, because if you put the schematic in the collection book, you can't use it, right? You have to go into the collection book. If you put something in the collection book, you can retrieve it back out of the collection book, and I'll put one in here to sort of show you. But it costs you some XP and some other resources sometimes to get it back out. So you want to be careful, right? You don't want to, if you think you might use a schematic, then keep it. If it's something that you're not going to use, or some of the early guidance, if you've got a duplicate, or if you've got one of a better rarity, then collection book the duplicate or the lower one. So as an example here, I've got 2 rare copper thrashers. Now you'll notice the perks are different, so I might take a look at which one of these I think the perks are better. I might want to keep one over the other. The collection book doesn't care about the perks; it just cares about the schematic in general. So it'll take this no matter what. But for your own purposes, you might want to look at these and decide, hey, which of these perk mixes is better for me, or do I like better? So I'll keep that one. So if you have duplicates, you can do that. And then my other example here is that I've got two copper vipers. I've got an uncommon and a rare. So the weapons are functionally the same, just one's base damage is a little bit different because it's a different rarity. Now again, some people will say, hey, well, by default the rare one will be better, so ditch the uncommon one and keep the rare one. Be a little careful on that early on, right? Because again, these perks matter, right? So obviously a rare one will have more perks unlockable at first, right, than the uncommon. But just take a look at that, right? Because a green, a green SMG with better perks might be a little bit better than a rare one with, not so great perks, right? So there's a lot to unpack here and understand about the different types of perks and how they impact weapons. And so I wouldn't worry about it too much. Now we'll do maybe a quick guide on that. But that's, early on, you want to do some cleanup here and say, hey, right, if you have duplicates of the same rarity, right, keep the one with the better perks and collect or recycle the other one. And then if you've got the same weapon in different rarities, typically, right, although be careful, right, ditch one of lower rarity because, why would you keep? You're not going to craft both. That's sort of the thing, right? When you craft these, that's what ends up in your backpack until its durability runs and it breaks and you have to build another one, right? But there's no point keeping two schematics if you're not going to plan to build them both. So if you're not going to use them, keep this clean and get XP in your collection book by collecting them. So let's try this out because according to the quest thing we looked at, recycling and collection isn't supposed to work until I complete that mission on page 4, which I haven't done yet. So I'm going to go try to collect this Copper Viper, this uncommon. So we go here and we go collect. Now you can see here when you collect it, you'll receive schematic manuals and schematic XP. So that's the other thing as well too, is that as you put these in your collection book, it gives you the very schematic XP that you need to upgrade the ones that you want to keep and level up. And in some cases, in order to do perk swaps and those types of things, you need these schematic manuals later on. Don't worry about them up front. You won't need them until later Plankerton. They don't come into play in Stonewood whatsoever. So don't worry about them now. Just know that if you're not using the schematic, collect it or recycle it, it'll give you XP back that you can use to upgrade the ones that you do want to use going forward. So let's just try this. We get confirmed. Okay. So now we see that it's removed it from my schematic inventory. Now, if we go and look at the collection book, we will now see under range weapon, that was an SMG. So there we can see. Now we can see it's actually in our collection book, right? And if I wanted to get it out, you can, what is it? It's inspect item. You can research the schematic, right? And that's where those manuals come into play, right? So if I want to research it, I can essentially unlock it and put it back into my inventory for schematics, but it costs some resources to do so. So you don't want to be doing that unnecessarily, right? You'd rather, right? You just don't want to be doing that, right? You can do that for any of these as well too. You can unlock ones that you haven't found yet, right, with different materials. Again, this gets really deep into collection book stuff, and that's a different video for a different time. Just know that it puts them in here. If you want to get them back, it's going to cost you some kind of resources to get them back out so that you can actually craft them again, right? So be cautious. But we have sort of proven that this quest map is telling us a little bit of monkey business, right? Because saying, hey, recycling and collection doesn't happen until you complete this mission. It doesn't unlock the mission, but obviously it's clearly already unlocked because we just did it, right? So what would happen now is that if I go over to my schematics, go to those ranged weapons. If I had another green one, we can do this with here. We can do that with the breacher. I said that's even better, right? If you've collected one and it's in the collection book, then the option will be to recycle. So let's take a look here. I have 2 uncommon breachers, and what's our here? So one's a crit damage and a damage perk, and the other one is a fire rate and magazine size. So I would take of these 2, right? I would say the crit damage and the plus 15 damage is better. So let's take this copy and let's collect it. And again, we'll get some XP and some manuals for doing so. Now on the other one here, if I collect this one, because I've already collected this schematic at this rarity, you can't collect it twice. So when I click on this one, it's now going, oh, well, you can't collect it, but this one you would recycle. And you'll still get resources for recycling it, and I'll show you here in a second because I've actually got, this is a perfect example we talked about before, I've got 2 rare copies of the breacher. So why would I keep this uncommon one if I've got these rare ones which are better? So this one has crit damage, durability, and headshot damage. This one has reload, magazine size, and crit damage. So of the two, this one's better, but both of these are, you can look at the DPS on them, 432 and 432, where this one down here is 393. So there's no reason to keep this one. So I've collected one. I don't need to put it in the collection book again because it's already in there. But to clean up my inventory, I can recycle this one. Now, I don't. When you do this, if you recycle it from here, I don't think it gives you. Oh yeah, it does show it here. So it shows you what you're going to get when you recycle it, right? Some XP and some schematics. So let's do that, and you'll see one of the quests was get your collection book to level 2, right? So because I got those pieces in there, hey, it gave me like it showed, it gave me a reward. It gave me the copper heavy sledge and a rare schematic. So now I have that added to my schematic inventory, and so it shows that my quest is complete. And it gives me some schematic XP to boot. So when we go, so if you want to know what schematics you just received, you go to this exclamation mark. It shows you the newest schematics that you just received. So there we go. There's that, rare heavy sledge, and that's not that great. Hardware in general isn't the greatest of the melee weapons, but there you go. So if we go back to our collection book, we'll just do it from here. Right, going to our collection book, we can now see that our collection book is level 2, and based on the XP in there, it's about halfway through, right? And we'll get another piece in there as well. So, going back into our schematics, that's sort of what you want to do is just sort of go through and clean these up. Because it gives you get rewards from doing the collection book. It keeps things clean, and I think more importantly, especially in the early game, it gives you schematic XP that you can use to upgrade your heroes and weapon or trap schematics. So again, of these two, I think we took a look at crit and headshot damage is probably better of the two. So now we haven't collected a rare one, a rarity, a blue rarity breacher. So this will be the first one. So then we'll collect it, get some more XP pieces out, and now we've got this one. Okay. Same thing, just sort of clean my stuff up here. We've got 2 of these copper thrashers, and you can also, if you want to do it, again, if you do the sorting, for me that's left stick on controller. You can do this by name, and it'll line them up that way, so you can see how many copies of each one you have at the different rarities in order. So I've got 2 of these copper thrashers. Damage, weapon stability. So this has got a double damage perk on it. This one has, so I would do, this one is a water one going further in. Might be useful. The other part to remember too is that take a look at these, right? These perks unlock at certain levels. See the lock icon on this one, right? That 10% damage perk is not on there by default. You have to upgrade this. I'd have to go and upgrade this to, level 5. And if I did, look on the left there. It actually shows you, right? So I'm on level 1, 2, 3, 4. And I go to 5. Oh, look, now the 10% damage is unlocked, right? If I took it all the way to level 10, then both of the first 2 unlock. I've got the damage and the weapon stability. So just pay attention to that, because I know some people made that mistake. I know I did early on, that you're looking at these perks and like, oh, this is really great. Oh, and it does water damage. Well, it doesn't do water damage until you get to level 15. And this is really critical through Stonewood. The only perks on the list that you'll be able to unlock are the first 2 for most of these, because they only requirement to get up to level 10. Right? What do you need to get to level 15? It needs to be a 2-star schematic, and you can't upgrade schematics to 2-star until you get to Plankerton. So you'll only be able to take advantage of the first 2 perks. So for Stonewood and Plankerton, I would mostly just focus on the first 2 or 3 perks in the list, and the order matters, right? When you take a look at these, right? Which ones do I get through level 5, 10, 5, and 10? So essentially, 5 and 10 you'll be able to unlock in Stonewood. 15 through 20 you won't be able to unlock those until you get to Plankerton, and you can upgrade these or evolve these to 2-star schematics. Okay, so through Stonewood, only pay attention to the first 2 perks. They're the only ones you would even be possibly able to unlock through Stonewood. And again, they're not unlocked by default, right? It's based on the level. This double damage doesn't unlock until I get to level 10, and then both of those, right, will upgrade, you can see as we go back to 5, those things light up at the different levels. Okay, just beware. Okay, so of these two, the water perk would be coming in later on, right, into Plankerton. So for this account, whatever, I'll collect this one. Let's feedback. And again, there we go. We've now hit level 3 on our collection book, and it's going to give me that rare schematic for a trap. Now it's a campfire. I can't remember these. Everybody gets these in the same order. If this is random, I believe it's random. Right, the campfire is not as good as the healing pad, but hey, right, it works in a pinch. And then we'll get some other pieces here on collection book. Level 4. Okay, we actually did 2 rows in a row, so it actually gave us a rare soldier here, Commander Spitfire. So again, there's lots of advantages to not only keeping your inventory clean, and only keeping the schematics that you're actually going to use. It also gives you rewards back. Now look, I've got 14,000 schematic XP to spend, and I got some free schematics and heroes from it as well too. The other thing tactically to keep this kind of keep your schematic list what's the word, clean and not overly large, is that when you're in game, same thing here when you go to your backpack, right? All the schematics for this, for all your range schematics are in here. Right now, it's manageable because you only have so many. And you can imagine you just keep collecting these more and more and more and more. So when you get into mid to late game, you have so many schematics in here that if you're in a game and your weapon breaks and you're trying to find one, you can favorite them to put them towards the top. But if you just got tons and tons and tons of schematics, it can sometimes be just time consuming in a pinch. Be like, oh, I need to craft another version of my, my rare breacher, of my death stalker, and you got to scroll through all these ones to actually find it. And that can become a mess if there's a bunch of extra schematics in here, especially if they're ones you never use. So if you don't like them or you're never going to use them, right, or if they're low rarity, just get them out there, right? And it'll keep things nice and clean. Okay. You get some good rewards back for that. So we have sort of proven that again, right? This unlocks recycling and collection actually unlocks a little earlier than the quest line says it does. So yeah, if you finish page 3, you can start to go through some of your schematics and start to take a look at them. I would mostly, for cleanup, I've mostly focused on the range weapons and the melee to start with, as you get sort of accustomed to those. Traps, I wouldn't worry about too much right now unless you've got duplicates, right? If you've got 2 of these at green, again, take a look at the different perks. If they're green or blue, I wouldn't worry about the perks too much because you're not going to bother with, you're going to get, you're going to wait for epic or legendary ones, right? Purple or gold ones down the road. I wouldn't worry about these too much of collecting and booking these ones off the bat. But again, if you are interested in just, hey, which of these perks are better, look at Mr. Beast's tier list. They will give you all the information that you'll need to know about what are the best perks and those types of things. I might do a couple, right? A short list of maybe what are some of the best ones to start with. But he's got a lot of that stuff out there as well too, and he's got a lot of detail. But again, also remember that, and I'm whatever, I'm a bit of a broken record, but again, these perks don't upgrade. These perks don't light up until you upgrade them to level 5 or 10. Just be aware of that because I ran into that trap all the time. That I'd make a decision on the perks in here, and then just assume that when I was using it, I was getting those perk advantages right off the bat, and you're not. Right? Have to upgrade them. Right? So I've got this gas trap. It's got a 15 damage and a physical damage burst right off the bat. Right? But you can see if they're not lit up, right, in that bright text, right, or if they've got the lock icon on it, then that perk isn't active yet, and it's not doing anything for you when you build it. Okay. So I think that's what we wanted to cover on that one. I think what I'm going to do for me is I'm probably going to run through the next couple of pages on the missions, and then just do a bit of a summary video at the end. So again, I'll probably go back to my PowerPoint because that's what I'm sort of using to help keep track on this. and I'll post this up and I'll update it as we go through. I have all the pages in here for every page of Stonewood, right? What it unlocks, right, at each level, right? In this one, you'll unlock tier 3 builds. You unlock your EMT Survivor Squad on page 6. All these different pieces, and then at the end of it, when you finish page 8 of Stonewood, the storyline just continues on to Plankerton. Okay, so just be aware of that. However, there's still stuff to do in Stonewood, and that's why I left these in here. There's still, what was it, 4 more SSDs to do in Stonewood. And it's really important when you take a look at this. This is why it's so important. Look at, you know what? I didn't update my spreadsheet on these ones. I'll update it before I upload it because these unlock Survivor Squad slots. And your Survivor Squad is what increases your power rating on your hero in the early game especially. So it's really important to do these ones. If you do these all the way to the 10th one, right, then you do unlock the endurance missions. Those Stonewood endurance mission in particular is really good to learn on how to do trapping, right? It's but it requires a lot of resources, right? A lot of builds and a lot of crafting resources for traps. So it's not something that you can unlock the Stonewood SSD or endurance missions. I'm gonna say that until you get to probably towards the end of Plankerton, you're not going to be in a resource situation where you're really going to be able to take a good run at using them. Although your mileage may vary depending on how you're playing the game. It's just they are really intensive on these builds. You'll take a look at Larsis's videos, and I've shared some of them as well too. Right, I take a look at his Stonewood endurance build missions, and he'll sort of show how you protect each amplifier as you deploy them. They're fantastic. They work really well, but it takes a lot to block off certain parts of those maps. It takes a lot of wood, or in this case, either stone or metal, ideally. So they're very resource intensive, and as you'll find, right, playing the normal missions eats away at your resources. Right? Every time you run a fight the storm mission, you're going to be building a little bit of base around the objective. So you're just constantly sort of having to rebuild up materials. And over time, until you get to good large surpluses of materials, you won't have enough surplus to really go in and take a real run at endurance. So unlock level 10 of the SSD missions as soon as you can, based on your power rating, because you want the survivor slots for your survivor squads, because that's what boosts your power level in the early games. And then you can decide to go back and play the endurance levels afterwards if you want. And there's some benefits to doing that, but it's not super important until you get towards like the end of Plankerton of running through those. But just be aware of that, right? That they, when you finish page 8, right, the storyline when you do when the rocket takes off, the storyline moves on to Plankerton and the Plankerton quest missions. And a lot of people forget that, hey, there's still these Stonewood SSDs left, and you don't want to forget about them. I didn't do them right off the bat because it was sort of out of sight, out of mind. And the quest line doesn't talk about them. You just have to go to your home base and know that there's still 4 more of these to do. But the reason that you want to do them, as we talked about, is that when you go back here and take a look at your hero loadout, sorry, this would be your survivor squads. I'm still getting used to Hestia about where everything is. I think survivors are here. Yeah, so your survivor squads. See, there's these. Right now, I only have 1 squad open, but there's these extra slots, and these are what unlock as you do those SSD missions. It's one of the main things that the SSD missions unlock, right? And you can see that what makes the survivors. Look at the health and the shield there, my fort stats, right? The survivor squads directly affect those. So your hero's health and shield and the regen rate of the shields directly is impacted by the survivor squads. So in early game, right, when you're taking a look at your hero loadout, and you're like, hey, I die a lot, or my HP goes down, or it takes a while for my shields to start regenerating. Take a look at this, right? Obviously your hero and the support team around them affects this as well. But the main thing that affects the amount of health and shield you have there in the top left This is survivor squads, right? So when you get really high level, it's not uncommon. Like these are in the tens of thousands, right? It's like, oh, I've got 10,000 health and 8,000 shields. Survivor squads and the slots of the survivor squads are what do that, and that's why it's important. So yeah, so let's probably the next video I'll do is just I'll probably show this guided tutorial for SSD5. The most of the rest of these ones, I'm not going to talk about too much about these because these are just normal, missions as you go through. This one does the supply run, which is the bit of a tutorial on the resupply mission. Yeah, none of these are that unusual. These are sort of mission-based ones as you go through. And then you get into the last page here, which is SSD6. And then this is a special mission here, which is the rocket mission, which each zone has a rocket mission, which sort of leads you into the next area, right? So I'll probably play through these ones on my account. I'll record some videos so I can do some. I can do a video for all of these; it'd just be too much. But I'll do a bit of a summary video, sort of going, okay, right? And I'll update my PowerPoint and go, okay, page 4 through 8, what did we unlock and when? Which ones do you need to pay attention to and be looking for? And then, yeah, we'll do that one. I'll probably do my videos based on these SSD missions, right? So this is the next one here. This is the guided one. And in this one, this is where you start to place your amplifiers, and that will become important. And I recommend looking at the Larsis videos on those and maybe doing the amplifiers in the order that he has them, just so you can follow his builds if you want to move towards endurance. That's what I do. And I'll do that again here on this new account so you can see that as well. Okay, so yeah, see now the storm is not covering up all the stuff. You can zoom in and out. So yeah, as we go through here, eventually you'll get to a rocket mission here, which I haven't unlocked yet. Yeah. So I think that'll be it for this video. I've been going on for a bit, but yeah, we want to talk about the collection book a little bit, about what we've unlocked to date. One other quick thing I want to talk about on the heroes. My recommendation is that by the time you're at the end of page 3, onto page 4, you'll have unlocked a second hero loadout. You can see at the top left there, I've got 2 loadouts, right? 1 and 2. Right? And you unlock these as you go forward. But in early game, my strong recommendation is that loadout 1 should be base Kyle. For the next little bit of Stonewood, you do unlock these with the quest missions. And this is a bit of a, there's also, make sure that you're going in here as well too, right? And this is right stick for me to look at the quest log. There are daily missions. Pay attention to these ones because these are unlock your X-ray and gold tickets, which you can use to unlock llamas, which in the early game is a good way to start unlocking schematics and heroes. So pay attention to these. They say daily, but you usually have several days to sort of complete these. I don't know really what the timer is on these when they refresh, but it's not 24 hours necessarily. It seems to be a little bit longer. And you can swap them out. If these ones seem too hard, you can hit the button here to replace them, and it basically recycles them with a randomized set. But I can't remember down here. I think under the hero quests, yeah. See here, if you get find so many of the, like, take a look at these because there are a couple of heroes you can unlock by doing these hero quests. This one's like playing the video games in the map. You'll see these are the little. All of these are related to the little yellow exclamation marks you'll see. And they unlock these quests, and these quests have rewards themselves. And some of them are heroes. So early on, one of the ones that gets unlocked that I think is worth maybe using up in the early game is, so obviously for loadout 1, we've got base Kyle. For loadout 2, I'm going to argue that there is an Outlander. Just to start playing with the Outlanders. The ninjas are good as well because you do get skirmisher edge by doing the quest line, and he's epic, so he's quite he's got some quite powerful pieces there, and he's got the abilities. But you'll find that in early game, outside of base Kyle, if you're doing build missions, the next class of hero that I recommend running is Outlanders. And even though the Outlanders that we have, there's sort of two types of them about what their abilities are. Let's go back to our heroes. We go to our Outlanders. You'll see here that on their abilities, there's a couple different mixes, but some of these are Teddy, right? So you see this thing here, Teddy robot. It basically deploys an auto bot, an aimbot teddy bear, right? So you place it down, it lasts for so long, it auto targets things on your behalf. It's a really great way of not burning through your ammo, and you can upgrade it a lot with a lot of perks going forward. Now, Kiro Homura doesn't have the Teddy ability, but he has the Shock Tower ability, which is also pretty good. Going forward, there's a couple of Outlander heroes that have both of these. They have Teddy and the Shock Tower. The one I used on my other account was, I think, Deadeye. I'll find a name of it, but for an Outlander, they can have different loadouts for different purposes. But Stonewood and Plankerton, the one that carried me the most was I got a hero early on that had both Shock Tower and Teddy mixed. Right? If you can find a hero that has both of those, that's a really strong combo early on, because the Shock Tower does damage, but it also stuns them, right? Which can slow them down. So it stuns them, it slows them down, and then Teddy just does pure damage. So play around with these and get used to them. I'm gonna say until we unlock a better one, maybe just to get used to Outlanders, and because obviously he's a legendary, so he has a little bit more default default stats for health and shield. I'm going to say on your loadouts for the second loadout, switch this from Skirmisher Edge and use Hero Homura as an Outlander. And then we can take a look at who we have for our support team. You can take a look at these ones as well too. Again, some of them, when they have these yellow pieces on them, it means that, hey, this Bear With Me is a good. It adds 4 seconds to the Teddy ability, but obviously your lead hero has to have the Teddy ability. So if they have these yellow ones on here, there's really no point to choosing these ones because they won't work. The perk requires a certain ability, and if your hero doesn't have that ability, then this perk does nothing. So you sort of want to look for ones. Here's an example, right? Up the voltage, where he increases the Shock Tower damage by 33%, right? So when we take a look at these, it's sort of, take a look at which of these is better, right? Dealing melee weapon damage grants a stack of assassin, or just a regular assault damage. So, I mean, this sort of depends, right? The default increase in damage is pretty good early game, right, for your weapons if you are using them. That said, if you're sort of using your melee weapons early on, like we sort of recommend, this one might be a little bit better, right? So, so I would suggest, hey, maybe we'll swap this one out and do up the voltage, because that actually lends itself to Kiro Homura's Shock Tower build, right? And then again, right now you only have a couple of gadgets, right? Now, the other thing to remember too is that in the bottom left here, we've also unlocked Defender slot. So make sure you've got a Defender slotted in here, right? I'm going to recommend strong. The only ones early game that I would recommend really using are the sniper defenders or the riflemen. I wouldn't use the melee ones at all. They're not that powerful. Although they've reworked how defenders work, and they travel along with you with as NPCs. I'm still going to argue you're going to want ranged defenders to start with. So either, I would suggest rifleman or sniper. Right now, I've got a sniper. Okay. So we'll sort of show what he can do in the next mission. But you can see his abilities that he has. I think having that Shock Tower early on with some boosts on it will really carry you for missions that are not based on builds using Kyle's base ability. Okay. Now, as we get different Outlanders and go through, again, what you'll find is that some heroes are used for a period of time. They have a time and a place. And then as you get into later missions, their mix of abilities just don't scale well. right? So certain, and you'll see the tier lists that people have, and they're pretty, Mr. Beast videos on this are pretty clear. He's like, yeah, this is a good hero for um, early to mid game, and then their value drops off. Right? They're not a late game hero uh, because they can't scale up well enough to deal with the more difficult levels of late game. Same thing with weapon and trap schematics. Right? Some of them are good for early to mid game, and some of them drop off pretty hard. So you might invest in them a little bit in the early game, but then you'll naturally you know um, whatever, right, graduate to other weapons that are better in late game. But for now, right, this is a good use. This is a good example with Hero Chimera. He is not a mid to late game hero whatsoever, even though he's legendary. But in Stonewood, for some of the stuff we're doing, right, with that stun ability and the shock tower, he's useful in the early game. So we're going to use him on the next couple missions, and I'll show you what he can do. Okay. So again, that's sort of it for right now. I will go and do the next couple SSD missions in the next couple pages of missions. I'll do a video showing you some of that. And then we'll just keep updating that PowerPoint that I'll share as well. So you can just see, hey, my tips and tricks, what unlocks where, and a couple of high-level tips of what I think you should do as you make your rush to Stonewood. That will be my last parting thing on here, is that I wouldn't worry about going back and redoing a bunch of these missions, although you can, right? And if you can just sort of speed run your way through doing these missions in Stonewood and get yourself up to the last mission and moving on to Plankerton, right? That's more worth your time. Right, so let's get up to the end of page 8 as fast as we can, and then maybe we'll circle back to see, hey, how many of those extra SSD missions in Stonewood can we get, and how hard are they based on our power level by the time we get to level or page 8. So I will do that as well in the background. You do some as well. If I come up with any tips, I'm gonna probably spend the next day or two. I'm just gonna run my account all the way up through page 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. If I have any tips in that that I think would help all of you, what hero to use or a couple other things to unlock, I will make a separate video on that, just a quicker video to go, hey, right, Stonewood pages 4 to 8. Here's the 2 or 3 things that you definitely want to do, or the hero you want to use or upgrade early on, because they just, they cover the most ground for you getting through Stonewood. Okay, so look for that video here probably in a week or so. I'll spend the next couple of days burning through the missions, and then we will go through there. And then, the beginner's guide will move on to Plankerton, and we'll dive into all the fun stuff that starts to kick in once we get to Plankerton and move to that new zone. Okay, all right. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one.